What's up guys, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the GLEX Romancing Festival Tomoe banner that brings 3 characters from Romancing SaGa 2. Well, the first one being Tomoe. She is a farmer for both Pierce and Heat. Can replace Mertlot-Syrah if you haven't gotten, but it's not better. Then Swift is a very strong Pierce damage dealer that works super fine with strategies that applies defense down and has very good evasion. And then Hippolyta, a character that gets stronger when not on overdrive by collecting chase attacks and then uncharges it all on overdrive. Well, let's go straight out to our rs.xyz website. We will start with Tomoe. She gives a name to the banner, and it's interesting that they gave her 100% endurance and 100% wheel, but this character is not really meant for boss fights. You just want the STR being 125 and the agility being 97%. Well, you can still use her on our challenges if you are missing out on the best characters, but, well, I do believe that she was mostly designed for grind. We have 30% damage increase. Then she has Heat Up Extreme that increases 30% every turn. So just from this alone, she gets 150% by turn 5. She still has this 20% damage increase. That means that when you consider she starts the fight with 80% damage increase, and on turn 2 she has 110%. That's important when we are discussing her grind potential. But nonetheless, she gets to 200% damage increase by turn 5 if you want to use her for boss fights. Then when she's attacking with single target attacks, she will chase with heavy pike. That's an interesting skill that was released with Tomoe's newest style. And when she attacks, she will chase with Pierce, B damage, and recovers HP by around 1.2 thousand. And she still has a 50% chance to chase with Flaming Fervor Spear. That's the third skill. This one is a single target attack with triple S power, Pierce and Heat, and before attacking she grants herself Improving Spirit 1. It says all because, well, when she attacks, right after this, you can see this passive here. She will buff all of her status, but just 5% and recovers 1 BP. Since this is before attacking, that means that even when she attacks with this skill, she will already buff all status by 5%, and she will still chase with her heavy pike, and then she actually buffs all of her status by 10%. And this passive lasts for 2 turns. It means that you actually want to just keep using this skill every 2 turns as well. Okay, so that's a skill that she can chase when she's attacking single target, and that will make more sense later. She still has 30% damage reduction at all times, and she decreases it further by 40% when she resists. That's okay. So, very defensive because she already has good endurance, good will, and she will get some buffs here and there, meaning that it's not so easy to kill Tomoe, especially if you're using the right equipment. Then, skill number 1 is called Rushing Thrust. It's Pierce and Blunt for free with deep power. Okay, that's 3, better than a normal attack. And her skill number 2 is Warship Impact. That's a full AoE attack that's not fast, so you need to use Godspeed stance. That can only be used 2 times per battle, and it deals full AoE, Pierce, and Heat damage. Well, that's interesting because it carries double S power and only costs 8. She starts the fight with 13 BP, meaning that she can use this on turn 1 and then again on turn 2 for very strong damage. There is some type of balance here. She will reduce the HP of all other surviving allies by 60%. They will still not die on the second turn, but they will be left with 1 HP. But it doesn't matter. When you are farming, you don't care about other people HP. You would not be using this on any hard challenge anyway. So, what is good about Tomoe? She can replace Mertlot-Syrah. Mertlot-Syrah has a very good and strong cycle of her skill number 3, Chain Lightning. That's 2 to 4 hits with B power, and we already have lots of passive that increases damage, and every time you kill the enemy you regain 10 BP. That allows you to keep using Chain Lightning. So, in this case, Mertlot-Syrah is the best farmer in the game because it's super fast when attacking. In this case, Tomoe will work the same for Pierce, but it's a little slower. We tested the animation, but any work right now that we can grind the game 24/7 without having the app open it, I don't think it matters. It's better for those that skip it Mertlot-Syrah than for those that already have. At least we have the heat element here that, well, can be found on Matcha, but Matcha is already failing. The latest version of Matcha has an A power attack, but plenty passives that will allow her to sometimes solo, but she's already failing. So the other one is Creator, that while his cycle is not full heat, many of the stages are weak to both heat and sun, so when he uses Creator's Flare and follows up with Holly's Wrath, it usually solos anyway. So what can I say? Tomoe, as a farmer, has competition, and she's better for people that skip the characters I mentioned. But now, what about her potential as a full-time damage dealer? That's something that I need to consider. Well, if it was like 3 months ago, that would be amazing, because look, she has a guaranteed B-power chase attack with Heavy Pike. That's okay. Remember, the rapier version of Asel, she had a guarantee A power attack, and then a chance to chase with a triple S power attack that will also buff her. So this is kind of similar in a way to the design of Rapier Asulus, right? But that style got released a lot of time ago. When talking about heat damage, for example, we could talk about, for example, Firebringer. Well, Firebringer is a very good character, and he has added utility. His skill, number 3, will apply morale down medium to the enemy, decreasing the damage by 25%. It's also triple S. Okay, it's slash and heat. I do believe that pierce and heat is more uncommon. But then after that, he chases always with his S power attack that's much better than D power, and then he has 50% chance to chase again with that S power attack. But this S power attack can debuff as well, so Firebringer can decrease incoming damage by quite a lot, so he's supportive, while Tomoe on boss fight is kinda just about damage. While the damage is not bad, it's just that the game is moving to a direction where the damage dealers have to offer something else. Even though she's pretty resistant, her damage is okay after turn 5. I don't think this sticks as a strong nuker, especially now that we have characters like Kihachi or Pina, and well, even the banner companion Hippolyta, but we'll get better discussion later. And as for her main cycle, you can open with Flaming Fever Spear, that will give you already 4 BP. You will chase with Heavy Pike, allowing you to get to 5 BP, but just remember that Heavy Pike is just Pierce, it's not double element. Then, she has 50% chance to chase again with Flaming Fervor Spear. So, in 2 turns, the average is to recover 11 BP, exactly how much she needs to keep her main cycle of using this skill and then using Rushing Thrust, and then going back to Flaming Fervor Spear. She's mainly a pierce damage dealer with good sustain, but no party utility on boss fights. If we were discussing inheritance, nothing here makes sense because she has very terrible intelligence to debuff, and Light of Blue Quartz from her last version, Korean Healed, doesn't really help because it's a charge attack and now we cannot use charge on grind. Overall, as a grinder, I think she deserves an OP grade like Mertlot-Syrah, but as a boss specialist for the future, she will be something between SS Plus and Triple S grade, because although she is strong, her design looks back into past releases from past year and not something that moves the gameplay forward like other damage dealers or hybrid attackers. Sadly, Tomoe is not for everyone, just for those that skip in Mertlot-Syrah. The next character is Swift, and this guy here has a focus on dexterity with 122%, being a very good number. His agility is 110%, very high for a damage dealer, and it's the same value as the latest Enya, and Enya, when placed in the back row of Rising Phoenix EX, can sometimes still attack before the enemy. He has just 73% endurance, but that's not really bad because he can decrease damage taken by quite a lot, but I'll be discussing this later. Will is just 81%, that can be a problem in the far future, but it's not right now. He does have intelligence because of inheritances, but it's kind of a waste. Moving on, he starts the fight with 13 BP, and he also starts with the OG Gouge fully maxed. That allows him to do very good damage on turn 1. He also has Conceal. When all allies are still alive, he has 50% chance to evade all enemy attacks and even ailments. Then he also has Possessed. By the end of a turn, he gets 25 points of Overdrive Gouge, and when attacking on Overdrive, he will always chase with his skill number 3, that's called Heavenly Fox Trails. A single target attack that attacks random enemies, so you cannot choose the target, unlike, for example, Kihachi, that's a similar character that also starts the fight with full Overdrive, can also use a multi-hit attack. Her skill is something that you can target, and it's 8 hits of E power, but it's also double element. They share the cold attribute, but he uses Pierce and Cold, and she uses Slash and Cold. They can be used together, and we're discussing this later. But since it's 4 to 9 times, the average is 6.5. The damage is higher, it's D instead of E, but Swift doesn't have anything else like applying defense down, like Ihachi does, or increasing damage via attack boost or self-buffing with each hit, so this guy needs a little more help to reach his max potential. Then he has 2 damage reduction passives. One decreases by 25% and the other decreases by 40% when he resists. Also, if he would resist an attack, he has a 37% chance to evade. So if he is well equipped, he will then have 2 damage reduction passives and 2 chances to evade, 50 and 37. Those stack, so he will likely not get hit that often, and even if he does, damage will not be high. He also gets 2 extra BP by the end of a turn and has just 20% damage increase. This guy totally relies on using a triple S weapon, so if you don't have one, make one now if you get him. Now, moving for our skills, the first one is Skilled Stab. It's a single target pierce attack that after the attack buffs the user's dexterity by 30%. The attack is free and has D power, so it's actually pretty nice. But in some fights, bosses will remove buffs by the end of a turn, and it can be wasted depending on the fight. Then the second skill is called Foxfire. It supports Self. It will buff his dexterity by 40% on rank 1 or 50% on max rank. Will also grant himself another stack of Possessed. Remember, that gives 25 points of Overdrive Gouge and gives him an extra chase on Overdrive, Heavenly Fox Trails. So, the good thing about this is that you can increase your damage potential by self-buff and get an extra attack. If you were considering just this extra attack as a command, you're getting a 13 BP skill just by the use of a 3 BP one, but you cannot use it now. And you are also self-buffing to increase the damage potential, so he's kind of a charge type. And this skill is also exactly like the one from Elicid. Elicid is a different type of design because she's a debuffer, and she already gets 25 points of Overdrive. And when she uses Azalea Dance, she gets under 25 points. And she also buffs Intelligence by up to 50%. So you can simply use this Azalea Dance twice, and then on turn 3 she will always be on Overdrive. And then depending on how much you use this, you can sometimes enter Overdrive faster, like turn 3 and then turn 5. Usually that's how it goes. That's the same thing that happened with Swift, with the difference that Swift has a multi-hit attack. He does not debuff. Then Lycid is a debuffer. She applies also Action Order down and Intelligence down. She's not so reliable as Intelligence debuffer because sometimes she won't debuff. Swift is a damage dealer that relies on multiple chases and a skill that has many hits, but it doesn't have anything else. Okay, you buffed your dexterity. Let's say that the boss does not remove your buffs. That's okay. But you got extra attacks. Now it's time to attack. Okay, let's say that you are on turn 1. Use it Foxfire. And then in that turn you already got at least 50 points of Overdrive. I don't know how much Foxfire gives us Overdrive, but if it's the same as Elicid, Elicid gets 25 points, as you can see here from Naorama SaGa. That would mean that you get 75 points of Overdrive when using Foxfire, when you're accounting for his 2 stacks of Possessed. So if an enemy attacks you 4 times, you get 8 points of overdrive gouge by each hit of the enemy. You could already start turn 2 on overdrive, but that depends on enemy behavior. And if you do get into overdrive, I suggest you using Heaven Life Fox Trails, because in that moment, you will attack 2 times. But you can also decide to use Heaven Life Fox Trails only on turn 3, so use Foxfire twice before that. Swift gets 5 EP per turn. When you are using Foxfire, you spend 3 and you store 2. Heaven Life Fox Trail is a little too pricey that after turn 3, you have 17 BP. And when you use it, you are going to have only 7, because you get another 3 by the end of a turn. That means that, naturally, even if you use Foxfire on turn 4, you will have enough overdrive to get into turn 5 fully charged, but you will not have enough BP for Heaven Life Fox Trails as your main command. Even if you chase 2 times with Heaven Life Fox Trails, you have to use Skillet Stab. That's not totally terrible because it will buff Dexterity to increase the damage potential, but it's not as strong, of course, as Heaven Life Fox Trails. That's the same problem that we had with Elicid, with her skill tree costing too much. That was 11, and sometimes we had to use Wild Rose Bind, but that was a free skill, right? So in the case of Swift, it's just the same. It's a free skill, so you can see how close these characters are. But then, why is Swift so strong? Because if you consider just the damage, even though it is strong by buffing Dexterity and attacking multiple times, this guy gets much better if you have the right characters in the same party. Which are those? Of course, let's start with Creator. Well, the latest Creator has this skill called Creator's Flare that applies Sundered, and Sundered decreases the defense of the enemy by 10% after it gets hit. So it works well with characters that have multi-hits. We have been using this with Kihachi. Creator also has inheritance from his Halloween style, Sun Shower, that has 2-turn effect, so you can use it 2 times in a row to apply 2 stacks of minus 10% defense, if you happen to have enough BP. Another character that can do that is Matcha. Matcha has it with her Perfector style on SaGa Magical Train, that already lasts for 2 turns. There is also Ellen, but she's kinda hard to use. Ellen, in her martial arts style, will apply Sundered on Overdrive, as you can see. And then we have the best partner for Swift, Kihachi herself. Yeah, the same character that we could compare and say that they will clash. They don't really clash. Now, I will explain. When Kihachi attacks on Overdrive, she applies Laceration for 2 turns. And she also starts the fight with her gouge fully filled. And in that case, you can decide to use Swift attack on full Overdrive on turn 1. So, you'll be spending all of his BP, 13. But if Kihachi goes first, she'll apply Laceration. If the enemy is weak to cold, that's the element that they share. If she goes first, it's 24 hits, and you have 37% chance to decrease the enemy defense by 35%. That's right, that's how it works when you have Laceration. So after those 24 hits, Swift will have a lot of fun, because he will then attack 2 times with his Q3. One from the command, and then the other via chase. And like I said, the average is 6.5, meaning that 13 hits. Well, it's not as much as Kihachi, right? But when he's used right after, he takes benefit of all the defense downs, because it only lasts for that particular turn, and he just gets stronger and stronger. If the enemy is weak to Cold and Lightning or Cold and Slash, you can still use something else. You can opt to use Kihachi's Lightning Dual Slash, because that will apply Laceration twice. And this Laceration from Lightning Dual Slash is permanent in the fight. So, when you use it together, you have, okay, Kihachi doing just 17 hits, and then Swift doing around 13 hits, but the damage will scale super well because of 2 chances of applying the weak defense down. So, in long fights, Kihachi and Swift will get into overdrive usually around the same time, with you sometimes wanting to wait to use Swift because he does have more problems with BP generation. Well, remember that he has 13 BP when he starts, and if you happen to use Heaven Life Fox Trails on turn 1, on turn 2, you will just have 5 BP, and you have to use Foxfire that uses 3. So, you are only saving 2 points. Imagine how much time it takes for you to get 13 again. So, you need BP batteries with Swift to make it easier. If you don't have BP batteries, you will sometimes be on overdrive and have to use either Foxfire again or just Skillet Stab. I think Skillet Stab will be better because by that, you will get 5 BP back. So, use Foxfire when you are not on overdrive, use Skillet Stab when you are on overdrive and don't have VP, or Heaven Life Fox Trails when you are on overdrive and you have enough VP. That's the main gameplay of Swift. He works super well with the characters I mentioned. And there's one other. Yes, that is Ziling. Ziling is now a pierce damage dealer with good potential. She also buffs STR and Dexterity. Dexterity increases the damage of Swift. And look, Ziling has this skill that gives her a passive called Black Winged Allies, that when she attacks, she has 50% chance to chase with Dance of Night Birds. This is a 3-hit attack that applies Pierce Defense down, that decreases the defense of the enemy to Pierce by 20%. After some time, she can actually always use this every 2 turns, so it will apply 3 stacks. This lasts for 2 turns as well. So, 3 stacks of 20%, sometimes more stacks, because of her chase. Usually at least 6 stacks. So if Ziling goes first, well, he has 100% agility. Not as high as Swift, but usually good enough. She will be increasing Swift damage by quite a lot. Also, there is another character that works super well with Swift, that is Joe. Of course, it will depend on the enemy having common weakness, but Joe gives you that rousing bound from Flame Force, where when you get hit, you get 5% extra increasing damage. So Swift only has 20%, everything that he gets will increase his damage potential. But the guy itself, while strong, it's hard to take full advantage if you are missing out on at least some of the characters I'm mentioning here. But he is very explosive, he can decide when he nukes, and when he nukes, he can be your finisher. And I really love this type of strategy, especially when we got Kihachi, and since he has synergy with the best damage dealer in the game, I wanted to pull for the guy. He has inheritance options, but they don't make sense unless you are on Remembrance, like you can paralyze for Real Queen with the Sparrow style. You can apply Confusion versus Wuhan. You can use a row attack versus Death Master. You can debuff Agility if you have the Falcon style. And that's it. That's the things that the guy can do. That's why I said that the intelligence here is kind of a waste. Swift is a character that is between a Triple S and OP grade, because if you have the correct characters to amplify his damage, he could be considered OP. But if you don't, you will not see his main potential. Another character that will work super well with Swift is Shirei, because Shirei will give him enough BP to keep using his skill number 3 more often via Flowering Strings. And maybe Valdor if you're still using Valdor, and other BP batteries in the future. There's one good thing about Swift when compared to Kihachi, is that Swift does not need to hit the enemy weakness to trigger his mechanics. So he can attack multiple times and even ignore the enemy weakness. But, well, in this game you usually have strong damage dealers for each elemental type if you summon enough. By starting the fight to overdrive, don't feel it. And not needing help to perform well. He's kind of similar to Urpina in that way, because Urpina does not need Lapel, and she has very good damage. But both characters have random attacks, they cannot choose the target, and that can also be a problem. If you have like 2 enemies in the field, then not all of them are weak to the elements. But the good thing is that our Pina is just Slash, and Swift is Pierce and Cold. We don't have many Pierce damage dealers, and if you got Ziling, you get Swift, you'll be safe for quite a while. But if you don't have the characters I mentioned, you can skip Swift, or you can start building the guy right now and collect alternative versions of the characters I mentioned. And now the last character is Hippolyta, and she has 130% STR and 90% Will and 90% Endurance. Those are actually good values. Her agility is not that great with 88%, and she still has 90% intelligence because she can debuff, especially via inheritance. She starts the fight with 12 BP, and when she lands an attack, she gets 1 extra BP. She also gets 2 BP by the end of a turn. She buffs Endurance, Will, and STR by 15% when she is attacking. And by the start of a turn, if her Overdrive Gauge is full, she grants herself this Morale Up Extreme that increases damage potential by 50% just for that turn. It does not stack with other Morale Ups. But if her Overdrive Gauge is not full, she then grants herself this Infernal Fire passive that lasts for 10 turns. It has 1 stack of Infernal Fire. Well, we have to discuss this in a few. Before, let's just discuss the full damage potential. She gets 20% heat up every turn, reaching 100% on turn 5. She also gets 30% increase via passive 3, and reduces damage taken at all times by 30%. So, by self-buffing, she can decrease damage taken a lot, and she has 130% damage increase by turn 5. She is a slow burner, does a lot of damage, but does not start super strong. Okay, now let's discuss what the hell is Infernal Fire. It's her second skill, Infernal Fission. It's a single target attack with slash and hit damage that attacks random enemies 3 times. So, this can be bad if there are multiple enemies on the field and they have different weaknesses. But every time that she attacks, she grants herself this attack boost that increases damage potential by 20% for just that turn, meaning that the second hit and the third hit will do more damage. Each hit has the power, and as a command, this skill costs 10 BP. And that's very important to discuss because, okay, this will trigger every turn when she's not on full overdrive. And when you use skill number 3, Scorching Destruction hit, that is a slash plus heat attack as well. This one you can choose a target with triple S power. It costs 12 BP, she starts with 12. It will also give you 1 Infernal Fire chase. This one only lasts for 5 turns, accounting for the turn where you got this. So you have to enter overdrive by turn 5 to use this. The other ones last for 10 turns. And from my Discord server, people are saying that she usually gets into overdrive by turn 5 because this skill here has very low overdrive point generation. It's actually better because Hippolyta hates people that give overdrive gauge. She doesn't work well with people like Labelle or Barthélemy or the future Virgil because if she is on overdrive, she just gets the morale up, and it's much better for her to get that extra chase attack. So please don't use her together with Labelle. But then okay, she uses Scorching Destruction hit that uses 12 BP, then she gets at least 6 BP per turn. That means that she has a cycle of Scorching Destruction hit and a normal attack, or you can decide to use Branding Item. That is a skill from the past that has C power and a chance to debuff the enemy's STR by 20%. The 20% value is nice and all, but I believe you're better off saving BP. Her intelligence may not be good enough for most content anyway. So, skill 3, normal attack. If you are using characters that give BP to Hippolyta, it's still better to save so that you can use skill 3 more often. But usually she gets 1 extra chase after every 2 turns. Nice. So, you get it on turn 1, then you get it again on turn 3, and you will get another on turn 5. And the good thing is that on turn 5, after she uses Scorching Destruction hit, she will already chase with that extra Infernal Fire. Well, you have 4 stacks from turn 1, 2, 3, and 4. and then 3 stacks from turn 1, 3, and 5. That means you have 7 chances if everything goes according to plan by turn 5. Okay, and then that's where everything shines, because remember that she gets hit-ups every turn for a max of 5 times? Okay, in this moment, she will have 130% from passives, and then another 50% from the morale up, and after she uses this triple S power attack, she will then chase 7 times with 3 hits. That's 21 hits with deep power. We were discussing multi-hits attack just now, and I said that Swift is not as strong as he could be because he doesn't have some stuff like defense down or attack boost. Hippolyta, every time that she attacks, she will also be buffing STR, Endurance, and Will. And if she were still buffing and those buffs were not removed by that point, then, okay, in that overdrive turn, you will buff yourself 8 times for STR, Endurance, and Will. The main command and the 7 chases. So every new chase you get 15% STR, so that you do more damage via STR buff. You do more damage each new hit because you get that 20% attack boost. So, Hippolyta is slash and hit. Slash means that she combos well with, of course, our beloved Kihachi. But Kihachi is much faster in dealing damage. Well, she opens with that super strong 8-fold dual blade with 24 hits, and she applies defense down. She breaks the game. She already starts charging, while what you can do is follow up later with Hippolyta, but not exactly on turn 1. On turn 1, Hippolyta barely does anything. She is a character made for long fights, and for specific fights where you can unleash a lot of damage on turn 5, and then you can unleash a lot of damage again on turn 10. Or sometimes you'll be forced to use overdrive before, because every time that she's on overdrive, unleash your chases. You have to. So, the bad part is that slash is plenty. We also have Arpina, but for heat damage, we just got Tomoe as well. We also have T260G. That is not so different, to be honest. T260G has this interesting setup where we actually have constant damage, while Hippolyta will explode the enemy in specific turns. With Annihilation System, we have 3 hits, and then on the next turn we have 3 chases. And you can choose to apply either defense boost or defense down to the enemy. If you choose to apply defense down, other people from the party can actually benefit, and you can also do damage. And you can see that you also have similar setup where you get stronger damage by turn 5. But Hippolyta will do more damage than T260G overall, but it's not constant damage. You have to wait. And Hippolyta really wants to wait till she gets into overdrive, so she does not pair well with Kihachi in this label setup. Kihachi will have to be used on her normal cycles of using normal attacks, then 8-fold dual blade, or lightning dual slash. Although Hippolyta doesn't really like label, he works super well with Shirei, because Shirei will give her more BP, and also can apply the ailment resistance that you would get from label. So Shirei is a very good companion when used together with Hippolyta, and can even buff her damage if he chooses to use his skill that buffs. That is, if the enemy does not remove buffs anyway. Another recent character that works super well with Hippolyta is Firebringer, because Firebringer will give 1 extra BP with every attack of Hippolyta, allowing her to store more BP. And when she uncharges all of her attacks, she already gets 1 BP back normally, and then she'll get another extra, so that after her overdrive session, she will have plenty of BP to start building up again, so her second cycle is much faster than her first one. Another difference is that Hippolyta, much like Swift, does not need to hit the enemy weakness in order to trigger her mechanics, unlike Kihachi, that needs to hit the enemy weakness. Although in this game you usually want to use a character that is strong versus the enemy, so there's that. So it's a strong damage dealer, but I will have to say that it's not as impactful as Swift even, because Swift is Pierce and Cold, and those elements are a little rarer than Slash and Heat. Heat is rarer than Slash, for example. As for inheritance options, not make much sense, but if you desperately need, you could just debuff with Floral Flourish. This is a skill that has a chance to debuff all enemies STR and intelligence by 15%. It's a very cheap skill to use, because if you are using people that give her BP, maybe just Liz for example, you can sometimes use Floral Flourish in between your normal attacks, and that can debuff, it helps, and debuffing STR and intelligence is useful most of the time. The other skills are too pricey, they will change the way she works anyway. But what you can do is cross inheritance, give that Scorching Destruction hit to Medea in fights where Medea still works. Medea has higher intelligence and she can debuff the enemies via chase. So get that skill, use it as your main command so that you can stack chases, and when it's overdrive, Medea will do bigger damage. Well, but that doesn't change too much. Medea is already a character that attacks multiple times, and it's all about debuffing and not exactly damage, even if she gets very good damage by number of chases. Hippolyta is good, and she works now and has a stable future, but I don't think that will last for too long. Swift will make a better impact, even if he needs better party setup. Hippolyta does not need anyone, but her damage will be lower when compared to Swift on full potential. Anyway, Hippolyta is a very good character, and I believe she deserves a triple S grade. Now back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? In my opinion, yes. I give it a Silver Plus award that's bigger than Golden Ball and Xiao banner, because here, all three characters have a purpose, and they also have very different designs. While I believe Golden Ball now has not much utility, because we have better buffers most of the time, and even when she's applicable, can simply run other characters. While Xiao is a very good debuffer, you could say that Ziling is not as impactful as Swift, although they combo super well together. With that said, I pull it here and I stop it when I got Swift. He is the most interesting character in my opinion. If you are a newcomer, getting Tomoe is very useful for grinding, because she's fast and she covers 2 elements, and Hippolyta is still a very strong damage dealer if you're close for PD. Go after her as well, since she's going to help anyway. But that's my opinion. What is yours? Please say here on the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't, and if you want to support the channel, we have links in the description like Patreon, PayPal, and Coffee buttons. I'll see you soon in the next video or live stream. Bye.